back, everybody, to day 11 of Numbers. We are going through chapters where we left off was 9 through 21. Let's go ahead and get into it. Chapters 9 and 10 basically handle the second Passover, guidance through what God's going to do next, the trumpets, and them essentially finally leaving Mount Sinai. They're not moving unless God moves, and God moves through a cloud by day and a fire by night, visibly always seeing God in their lives. And they only moved when they saw God move, and whenever they moved, the Ark of the Covenant was in front of them, and God was leading them in that, and then the people would follow underneath them. When you get to chapter 11, you see that basically people start complaining again, like they always do. The Israelites start complaining that they had no meat, that God got angry, he sent quails, and then he put his spirit over 70 of the elders because he was going to start moving in more of the people and start to instill in them the responsibilities that they needed to do to be able to handle and deal with the people, which is in chapter 12. When in chapter 12, we see that where Miriam and Aaron basically start to speak against Moses, and God is not liking this. What they use to complain about is pretty strange. They start to complain about Moses' wife, and they use that as a justifiable means to be able to kind of point and find something to prod at Moses. This is all happening with them two, right? This is them separate from Moses. Moses is doing his own thing, and so God calls them out. He's like, yo, all three of y'all come to the tent, we're gonna talk. God calls it out as is, and Miriam, her pride was like, nope, I'm standing on what I said, and God gives her leprosy, and Aaron immediately was like, nope, I don't want none of this smoke, my bad, my fault, won't happen again, won't hear nothing from my mouth. He's seeing this and he chooses the humble route. He doesn't say anything. He goes and he actually prays to God to heal Miriam so she wouldn't have to suffer and deal with things that she was dealing with. And God has mercy, heals Miriam, and after 7 days she comes back to the camp. And it is just one of those things where we notice that Moses doesn't have to defend himself, and we're going to see that again as the chapters go on. And if we're seeing that happen with the people that God is using, that they're doubting that this is God's way, imagine what's going on in the people and the people around them, right? But it's chapter 14, you see that people are continuing to grumble, they're continuing to complain, they're continuing just to be bitter and be all type of things. In chapter 13 and 14, we see that Moses sends out the spies. He sends Joshua and Caleb to go inspect the land, and this is the second time we see them mention the Nephilim. And just to pay attention, that if we notice that now the Nephilim have some type of ancestry, these are the sons of Anak, and so it kind of further pushes that point that these are not divine creatures, these are not fallen angel offsprings, that these are just descendants of somebody that is from a different land, and this land happened to be the Canaanite land. When Moses sends these spies out there, they come back, and when they come back, they see that their people are afraid. The only people that were ready to go to catch the smoke was Joshua and Caleb, and everyone else was like, nope, we're not going to do it, we're not going to pick the fight, blah blah blah. And that's when God says, okay, cool, no problem, you're going to go ahead and wander for 40 years. You lost the battle, and not only that, but now you lost the opportunity to enter into what God was going to do for you. In 16 through 17, we see that Korah's rebellion is kind of coming to a head. We see what God is doing through Aaron's staff through that, and what God's pick is overall for the people that are supposed to lead Israel. And so Korah, R.I.P. Korah and the 250 that died with him. And then after that, the people saw that Korah was swallowed up by the land, and we see that Israel starts to complain some more, like, oh my God, you're killing his own people, blah blah blah. And so then they start getting killed, and then Moses has to go and tell Aaron, yo, make some sacrifices, let's get these people right. You can tell that Moses is getting fed up, he's getting frustrated, because shortly after that happens, guess what? Jump over to chapter 20 and 21, Moses is no longer allowed to enter the promised land. It's because when God tells him to speak to the rock, he hits the rock, and God is like, why would you do that? What are you doing? Where he's like, now you're getting frustrated, now you're getting bitter. And this is something that's really debated, it's really contended, because we see that Moses is finally kind of cracking under all of this repetitive nonsense, but nevertheless, he also disobeyed God. He acted in anger. He took credit for what belonged to God, and he also failed to uphold God's holiness in front of these people. And because of that, God told him, hey, you're not going to enter into it. Now, there is some symbolisms here. We want to see Jesus in everything that we read, right? The first thing we see is the meaning of that rock. In Exodus 17, the rock that was following him in the desert, that was the rock that he was supposed to hit one time. Christ only died one time so that you could continue to receive water, we continue to receive what you needed. And we see that a little bit of hint of that in Corinthians. God would later then tell Moses, hey, instead of hitting the rock again, because you only need to hit it once, this time just speak to it. Well, what is speaking? And speaking is prayer. You speak with that faith. You believe that when you speak to this rock, it will spring up water again. But no, instead, Moses, he hit the rock. It's Christ. You would have to crucify him once and just believe in him forevermore, and he will continue to provide to your need. But out of frustration and out of anger, we hit him again. Then the second thing that we see later on in chapter 21 is the bronze serpent. The symbolism there is the judgment. We see the symbolism of judgment, that the bronze always signifies judgment in the Old Testament. It's just one of those things where you always kind of connect these dots. And the serpent represents the sin and the curse. And the bronze serpent, the judgment, the sin, is being put on display and has already been judged. It's already been done. And that foreshadows to Jesus later on, because the serpent on the pole pointed to Christ on the pole. Sin was put on the pole and judgment came. And it's through the judgment, it's through the crucifixion of Jesus that we are found free. And as Moses lifted the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man shall be lifted. That's what the Bible says later on, that salvation is coming through faith. So even with Israel in the wilderness, the healing wasn't a magical thing that happened. It wasn't this like witchcraft nonsense. No, they are being saved because if they looked to the cross, they would be saved. That's everything I got for you guys today. It's a lot of chapters, a lot to digest, but that's all I have for you. And I'll see you on the next one.